Are you tired of self-doubt holding you back? Have you ever wished you could have the confidence to face your fears, go after your wildest dreams, and the tools necessary to live your best life? Hey there, amazing listeners. I'm your host and author of How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power, and I've made it my mission to help you break free from self-doubt and embrace confidence. Subscribe now and join us as we unlock the secrets to unshakable self-assurance. Let's dive in. Scott MacGregor is the founder and CEO of SomethingNew, LLC, a trailblazing talent strategy company recognized as an 8-time winner of the American Business Award for Innovation. He is also the visionary behind the Outlier Project, a global private membership community focused on empowering individuals to live extraordinary lives. As the publisher and editor-in-chief of Outlier Magazine, Scott connects with an audience of over 38,000 followers to share stories of exceptional people and ideas. A 4-time author of the acclaimed Standing O series, Scott's thought leadership spans innovation, talent strategy, and personal development. Based in Connecticut, he is an influential figure in career coaching and talent acquisition and fostering connections through over 200 live events annually with the Outlier Project. Scott, welcome to the show.
Tara, I am very excited to be here. So thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, quite a resume, right? I mean, this is kind of amazing what you've got going on. You know, I digged a little bit into the Outlier Project. You've got several hundred members across the globe. You're doing amazing things. Your books are incredible, and you know you've won multiple awards doing exactly what you do. So you're at the peak of your career for many people, you know, looking on the outside, which is amazing. I would love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing right now that is so amazing in this world.
Well, thank you. I'm just having fun, to be honest. You know, so I am running 3 different organizations. So I run a talent strategy company called SomethingNew, which I started 10 years ago, and I have a phenomenal team that really keeps that ship sailing. And then I'm the founder of the Outlier Project, 750 members in 35 countries and growing very, very fast. And then I'm the publisher of Outlier Magazine, which we're just shy of 30,000 subscribers after only 4 issues. So that has just been fun. I didn't want to do a newsletter like everybody else. So I thought, you know, I grew up on magazines and I thought, why not do a big, glossy, high-end magazine? And it's been just an absolute blast.
I love that. That is so cool. No, I'm with you. I started the newsletter thing too. But I think, you know, so many people are doing it. So you have to try something new, right? You have to kind of go outside of the box.
100%.
But that's great. You know, the work you're doing it seems to be all about highlighting exceptional people doing exceptional things. So high-performing leaders and individuals, high-performing entrepreneurs, right? That kind of sounds like the folks that you bring into your network. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I think throughout my life, you know, I grew up very poor in a very affluent town. So it was a weird way to grow up. I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. And you know, when I was young, I thought in order to be successful, you had to be born a Kennedy with a lot of money, or you had to be born with Steve Jobs' brain or Michael Jordan's DNA. And as I got to know the equivalent of those people in my journey, I found out that none of that was true. My friends who are gold medal Olympians, my friends that run billion-dollar companies. They're ordinary people that have chosen to do extraordinary things and live an extraordinary life. So I think that opportunity is there for everybody. You don't have to be born into it. You can create it.
Well, you're speaking my language, right? Because it sounds like we had similar upbringings. I was the youngest of five, raised by a single mother in poverty. And a lot of times we were under the poverty line. And I grew up in Maryland, and it was Howard County, Maryland was and still is one of the richest counties in the United States. And here we are, right? Standing out like a sore thumb, not fitting in. Most of the clothes that I wore when I was a kid were hand-me-downs, right? So I remember what that felt like. And I'm with you. My whole childhood, I would look around and say, why me? Why this, right? And I would see people that were born into wealth or, this kind of thing. And I would think, that's, I guess, how you become wealthy. You just have to be born into it. And it was a real mindset change that I had to uncover. And it took a long time for me. It was not easy to go from, being in that situation where you're living without, where you're in poverty, to a situation where you're creating your own success. So I would like to hear a little bit more about that, because honestly, a lot of people, maybe they're listening to this show right now and they're going through a hardship, Scott. A lot of people have been laid off from their jobs. They're searching. They're not sure how to become successful. Maybe they're drowning in some kind of debt. I would like to hear, from you, since you've gone through this journey, was there a moment of transformation or a catalyst for you that you said, you know what, this is not the life I want to live anymore. I want more from life. Was there something?
Yeah, I knew it early on, and it wasn't any materialistic things. It was, I didn't want to live with the stress that I saw my parents have. So, when a birthday would roll around or Christmas, I knew that it was a stretch to get any presents. And, I just thought that's not a life I want to live. So I'm going to do what I can to never be in that situation. Again, it had nothing to do with a big house or a nice car or anything like that. It had to do with the feeling that it gave. I was very fortunate that I was a decent athlete, so athletics leveled the playing field for me. So I always had a great friend group, and I was never bullied or anything like that. So I was very fortunate. I did have a high school teacher who taught journalism. His name is Frank Barron. And I remember my senior year, he said to the class, he said, "You're all going to be successful, but you've got to do two things." So I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what is it? What do you got to do? And he said, you got to work hard and you got to be nice. And I kind of thought he was kidding because it seemed so simple. So I went up to him after the class, and we called him Coach because he was also a coach. I said, "Coach, do you mean that? Like, if you work hard and you're nice, we're all going to be successful?" He said, "Absolutely." And I thought at that moment, those are two things I can control. I can control how hard I work, and I can control how I treat other people. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 something years, is trying to outwork people and trying to be as kind as I possibly can. So it has been a recipe for success. And I think certainly also being an outlier and not going on the path that the thundering herd is going down, but kind of seeking my own lane and not being afraid to show up differently has led to a fair amount of success. So, I guess, there's never one moment. Certainly that class with Coach Barron was a big epiphany. But it's been a fun journey. I believe adversity is a gift. And I believe that pretty much my whole life. So I've kind of never had a woe is me attitude or like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I knew, just like in athletics, when you're working out, you're building the muscles that allow you to be stronger in the future. And adversity works the same way. It just allows you to flex that resiliency muscle and allows you to be ready for whatever trial or tribulation is going to come up. Because no matter where we're at in life, there's always a bus that's going to come around the corner and run us over. And it's just a matter of, can we bounce back or not?
Well, you're speaking my language. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I liken it to, you know, if you're looking at let's say a blacksmith, right? A blacksmith example. They take a blunt metal object, right? And they put it through fire, the hottest of the hottest of the fire. They take it out, they beat it with a hammer, all right? And then they put it through cold, and then they put it through fire, and they keep repeating this process until they get a really refined sword that's sharp and capable of doing the exact thing it's made to do, right? You'd be pretty hard pressed to win a battle with a really blunt object. But you take that object and you refine it and you give it some adversity, really, some resistance. And all of the sudden, that once blunt object becomes a real force, right? And ultimately can help you win in battle. The same thing with adversity. And, when we look at even exercise as an example as well, in order for our muscles to grow, they have to have resistance training, right? So this resistance, this adversity is a gift. I do agree with you that when we can look back at the adversities that we've had in life and really reframe it from one of lack to one of gain, and thinking about all of the refinement that we've had through that process, that's when we can ultimately step into that extraordinary person that we are born to be. What do you think about that?
I agree with you 100%. When I'm going through a tough time, which I've had a gazillion in my life, it's never like, yippee, this is so awesome that I'm going through it. It's a gift you don't want, but it's a gift that, if you get it, like, you have to deal with it and you have to appreciate it for what it is. So, I'm just very grateful that all the adversity that I've been through has made me stronger for the next battle. So I agree with you 1,000%. And I just always have that mindset. And in my lowest moment, I have a mental framework that I go through, and I think about how many people, Tara, would be behind me that would say, you know what, even in my worst moment, I would take Scott's place. And that line is very, very long, of people that would take my place, even in the worst of times. And I think that's true for everybody. So when you think about it that way, it's harder to feel sorry for yourself. And it's easier to understand that we control our destiny. It's up to us. Our life is whatever we decide it's going to be. So for me and for the Outlier Project community, we're striving for an extraordinary life. But extraordinary is different for every person. Mine happens to be a life of impact. That's what I aspire to. That's what I believe is an extraordinary life. But that doesn't mean that it's 750 other people's definition of extraordinary. But, we're doing our best to help everybody reach that level for themselves.
Well, we all have a different definition of success, to your point, right? And it's when we are talking about being a high performer, being extraordinary, I'm not saying that you need to have a Lamborghini in order to be an extraordinary individual. I'm not, equating this to the materialism like we so often do, right? But it's to live your best life, a fulfilled life that is, helping others, the collective in some kind of way, right? And also, of course, you want to help your family, help yourself, because you don't want that stress, right? Like you were talking about in the beginning of what it's like to live without. So it's completely fine that you have a life that is not focused on money, but that you have a life that is not deprived of it. And then you do extraordinary things to help your community, to help other people, to help the collective, to raise other people up. That's what a fulfilled, truly purposeful life looks like for me. It's not necessarily a Lamborghini or 20 mansions or any of these things. That to me is it's not necessary. What I'm looking for my definition of success is, do we have what we need? Do we have a support system around us, an environment that is conducive for continual growth, right? And am I meeting the goals that I've set for myself that I know that I can achieve? Am I getting outside of my comfort zone? Am I on a continual growth curve? Are we as a family striving for bigger and better things? Again, not necessarily materialism, but goals that I know that we should and can achieve. It's about continually pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone to accomplish something that's great. And it goes back to that God-given potential that I know that I have and you have and we all have. And I think if we all do that every single day, and it doesn't have to be leaps and bounds, right? 'Cause it's really easy, Scott, to look at somebody and you say, oh my gosh, I have to sprint to get that, right? What is the hack, the tip, the trick to get millions of dollars overnight? It's not about that. If we can steadily improve every single day, you become an exceptional individual very quickly, don't you think?
I do. I mean, anything that you want to achieve takes time, and it takes stacking wins. And sometimes those wins, it's not a home run every time you get up, it doesn't have to look pretty either. But that small incremental progress, whether it's your health or whether it's your finances, your business, your relationships, whatever it is, it's just putting more into it every single day. At the end of the day, we all just want to wake up happy. If you wake up happy, you won life. So whatever that means. So I don't have any judgment for if that means that, in order for you to wake up happy, you need a Lamborghini in your garage, then, God bless you. That's great. And I would be fully supportive of that. I think that's pretty rare. But I think that's the goal. The goal is to wake up happy and figure out how to do that. And taking care of your health and your relationships and your finance and your business and things like that is critical. And just making incremental progress is what it's all about. Consistency and discipline are two things that I think will change most people's lives, but is very, very hard for most people to do.
Absolutely. That's what I've found as well. And I'm fortunate in the sense that consistency is something that I wouldn't say I've always been good at, but it's something that I've always committed to. When I first started my entrepreneurship journey, for example, before that, I'd never really posted content, right? I was never consistent at those type of activities that would cause people to know who I was on a larger scale. But once I became an entrepreneur, and this is just an example, I knew that in order for people to know me, I had to be consistently in their presence in some kind of a way, right? So I committed to myself right then and there, and it was almost 3 years ago now, it's hard to believe, that I would post content consistently. I haven't wavered on that commitment in 3 years. I committed last year, it's almost been a year and a half now, that I would start a podcast. I've been ruthlessly consistent. Sometimes I post more than one episode a week. Sometimes it's 3. I know the key to success is this discipline and consistency that you're talking about. Because there was a time in my life when I didn't have either of those things, right? And I was not successful. And ultimately, if you can just do those 2 things, level up your discipline, level up your consistency, you'll outbeat everybody. And it's when I say that, it's not about beating other people, but it's about beating the former version of yourself and who you were. And again, stepping into that person that you know you can be. And if you can be consistent and disciplined in your habits, you are so many steps closer. And I've talked about this in a recent podcast as well, that, if we just improve 1% every day, again, that's discipline and consistency. At the end of the year, you're 37 times improved. You're a completely different person, 37x from where you started. You're completely different. You've got completely different habits and consistency. And ultimately, that can really take you to give you that competitive edge that can differentiate you from basically almost anybody else, don't you think?
I do. I'm not a fan, believe it or not, I'm not a fan of the 1%. A lot of people talk about it, and this is the reason why I'm not a fan of it. I believe it's true, but I think saying I'm going to get 1% better, it's not measurable. It's not specific. It's just, it sounds good, but you have to be very, very specific. Like, what am I going to do today to get better? People that say, I just want to get 1% better every day and then kind of do the cumulative math, I'm not sure that they have a crystal clear image when they wake up in the morning. This is what I need to do today. And without that, I think the 1% thing never happens. We live in an insanely undisciplined world. And that's why we have incredible debt. We have insane obesity problems. We have all of these problems because of a lack of discipline. So I think the more specific you can get, the better off you're going to be. So in concept, I love the 1% rule. I just think it gets talked about a lot, but without specifics, the chance that it's going to get executed on a daily basis is very, very slim, in my opinion.
No, I can completely see that side of it, right? And this podcast, my book, it's called Grasp, GRASP. One of the letters is S, right? So that stands for sight. It's not just in a physical sense. This is also in a visualization sense. You have to know and have clarity of what you're doing, your next steps. You can have as much action as you want, but if you don't have clarity on whatever goal you have, you're going to end up with a lot of wasted activity, to your point. So you have to have a clear picture of what it is that your goals are, who you want to become. So, for example, if you're trying to lose weight, you talked about the epidemic of obesity in this country, then it would be, instead of this burger and french fries for lunch, maybe you're going to substitute it with a salad, right? It's a improvement in an aspect of your daily life. And then if you can pair that with exactly what you want to achieve and keep that vision at the forefront of your mind, I think that's a really hard aspect for many people because we're so distracted today, Scott. We're inundated with ads. We get 200 emails a day, direct messages, all these things that just distract. So one of the harder points, I feel like, is keeping that visualization at the forefront of your mind. What really is it? And anchoring it. But if you can do that on a continual basis, again, that consistency of that holding of the vision, you'll be so much farther ahead too. So it's, a multifold thing. You need to have clear goals, but you also need to have it kind of anchored so you don't get distracted from those goals as easily. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. But I think you also have to have a bias for action. And I think there are times when you just have to live into the answers and know that if you're developing good habits, that good things will happen. And being consistent in anything that you do, good things will happen, whether it's posting on social media or whether it's eating clean or whether it's moving your body or whether it's investing money, or whether it's investing in other people and building those relationships. Over time, great things will happen. You don't have to crystal clear know what that will look like, but I think you have to know that positive things will come of it. I've been, fortunate that I've been very, very disciplined my whole life. And I didn't really know what the outcome would be. So just a silly example, I never missed a class in college. So in 4 years, having a ton of fun in school, I never missed a class. Why? Because I felt like it was my obligation to show up. And did good things happen because of that? Absolutely. But I didn't plan. I didn't say, well, if I go to every single class for 4 straight years, this is what's going to happen. But great things did happen. And that's continued, as I've kept up being disciplined and consistent in many different aspects of my life. And certainly in business, it's been a game changer.
It really is. I wish I could remember the CEO that recently said this, but when someone asked him why he was so successful, he said, I simply outwork people. I take action quicker. So, for example, he used this example. If I have an idea, my competitor has an idea, I will take action on that idea. By the time they're finished their first meeting about the idea, I've failed 3 times. I really like that because, we do need to take action, and sometimes it's a little messy, right? It's not going to be perfect. Ultimately, when we start, we're not going to always know what we're doing. But if you think about things forever and you don't take action on them, and you just have meeting after meeting after meeting and delay, and you're not ever executing on anything, you're never going to match up to somebody doing the exact same thing as you. So I think that's pretty important too, that, we can think and theorize about something all day long. And I see this with a lot of entrepreneurs. They think themselves into oblivion and nothing ever happens, right? And we see this with content strategy, with hiring people. They think and think and think, but never execute. And then ultimately, what happens? They don't reach their goals and objectives. So I think that's pretty important too, is, you're talking about showing up for school. Are we showing up? Are we showing up? Are we showing up as the disciplined person that is going to attract other disciplined people? That's another important aspect of this. If, we're talking about high-performing leaders, I don't expect to attract high-performing leaders if I'm not first a high-performing leader. I would like to know your thoughts about that too.
I agree. You've got to walk the talk. And, that bias for action is incredibly important. We work, whether it's Something New, whether it's the Outlier Project, or whether it's Outlier Magazine, we work in a fashion that is disconcertingly fast. If we decide that we're going to put out a magazine, literally 2 months later, we have a magazine that has 30,000 subscribers and has people like Jesse Itzler, Layla Ali, Candace Nelson, Jacques Pepin on the cover, and tons of amazing people inside. So I would say you have to move uncomfortably fast. And that's something that maybe it's the inner outlier in me. I don't mind moving incredibly fast. And you had mentioned just posting content. I give zero thought to what am I going to post? When am I going to post it? I just do it. I don't have a grand strategy. I just do it. And that works for me. I don't know that it would work for everybody, but it certainly works for me. So I think, when in doubt, I just take action. And I'm not afraid. I'm married to Meg, my wife. I'm not married to anything else. So I'm not afraid to change anything. I'm not afraid to pivot. I don't get sentimental about things that at the end of the day don't really mean that much. I've seen people, pull their hair out about changing the logo or changing their, LinkedIn profile picture. Like, I just think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. I'm not married to anything other than my wife. So with that, I'm willing to change anything if it makes sense. And I just move. I just do it.
Yep. You just have to do it. And you have to accept the fact that it's not going to be perfect, that it may be a little messy, that it's okay to fail, and that you're learning from it. Going back to our conversation of how we started with the adversity, it's those adversities, those challenges, those obstacles, those failures that really set up to refine us again for the person that we're meant to be. And if you look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective, from a business perspective, one of the best things to know is that, we're going to encounter failures. It's not going to be perfect in the beginning. It's not meant for us to think and theorize forever. It's meant for us to to act with decisive action, to be intentional, but to act. And if you can do that, then on a consistent basis and not worry about the failure, not worry about if it's perfect, then you're going to be, again, so much farther ahead than so many people. And you pair that with consistency over time, you'll be an unstoppable force in not that long of a period of time, right? But it's consistency. It's those habits and disciplines. And you have to want it. You have to really, really want something. And it's just so important because it's such a great life lesson that, when you pair these activities, I don't think I ever mentioned you had to get higher IQ. I don't think I ever mentioned any sort of technical degrees that you had to accumulate. This is just about using your natural skill set and abilities, becoming a little bit more disciplined with better habits and consistency. So the good news is that anybody can do this, right? If you choose to do it. But you have to wake up every day and make that choice, right?
You have to understand what your why is. If you don't understand why you're doing it, if you, just say, well, I'd like to get in better shape, or I'd like to, have more disposable income, or whatever the case may be. If it's not tied to a very strong why, you're going to float, you're going to just go off course because you're not anchored in that why. So it has to be really strong. You have to understand, why am I doing this? Because anything worthwhile is probably pretty damn hard. So when you hit adversity, when you hit the hard parts, that's typically where people deviate and they stop doing the things that they need to do. But because it's not anchored in a strong why, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that, because it's not rooted or anchored in that why that's non-negotiable. So for me, it's always been figuring out what are those things that are non-negotiables for me that I'm not going to negotiate with myself. I'm doing this no matter what. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm doing it. And when you have that strong conviction, great things happen. When you're not quite sure, it's easy to quit.
That's right. I love that. Well, Scott, what a pleasure. It was great interviewing you. I think I learned some new things. I'm sure everyone listening to this episode did as well. Let us know what are the best ways to reach out to you and find you?
Yeah, best way to reach me is LinkedIn. It's definitely my social media platform of choice. So feel free to send a connection request, but I would say, send something outside of just kind of the generic connection request. That's the easiest place to find me. But other than that, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on, all the different platforms. But LinkedIn is definitely the place to find me.
Me too. It's my favorite, definitely my favorite platform as well. Well, Scott, wonderful interview. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who tuned in to this episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. I know it was inspiring for me, and I really hope it was inspiring for you as well. My biggest takeaway from this conversation is that adversity is a gift. It's a gift. And when we look back in our past and we think about the adversities, the challenges, the obstacles that we've been through, if we can reframe those to how can it open up more opportunities for me? What has this taught me? And who did this help me become? We will all be so much farther ahead in accepting our past, our present, and expanding into our future selves that we are born to be. So what an inspiring episode. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care. And that's a wrap for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you for joining me today and investing in yourself. Remember, building confidence is an ongoing journey, and each step you take brings you closer to the empowered, fearless version of yourself that you were born to be. Don't forget to visit my website, follow me on social media, and purchase my book, which is available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. Stay confident.